we all have heard, the thoughts of forgiving others. And we always think of, I've got to forgive, or you don't want to forgive, or however you do, whatever it is. But a lot of times we have to think about what it is about forgiving ourselves.
Mm.
Because throughout this entire time, we make choices. And sometimes we are so busy looking outside that we forget to look within ourselves. And then when we do look within ourselves, we hold so much guilt and anger, and even sometimes depression,
Mm.
and sometimes anxiety that comes from the fact that you're holding on to something or a choice or a decision that you've made in your life that you need to forgive yourself about. So forgiving ourselves is difficult, yet it's powerful in our healing process. And it also helps us to be able to move on. It must be cultivated and practiced. So it's not as simple as, oh yeah, I'm going to forgive myself today. It doesn't happen that way, because as much as hard as it is to forgive somebody else, it's harder to forgive ourselves.
Mm.
We tend to be our worst self critics. I mean, if you show me something right now, actually, if I listen to this recording tomorrow, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I should have said this, I should have said that, I should have said that. And that's just the way we are. We also tend to speak negative about our lives. We tend to not recognize the positives, but I also think that has a lot to do with our society being very negative.
Mm-hmm.
But in the journey of forgiveness, it can once again assist you and be able to move forward in your life. So a quote that I've actually heard that resonated with me, that hopefully will resonate with you, is forgiving is giving up the hope that the past can be different.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Giving
see
up the hope that the past
mhm,
can be different.
yes,
Mm.
and I see Dan and Serenity has joined in as well, Star. So welcome. So once again, forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past can be different. So we'll start off first by talking about what the myths of self-forgiveness is, because there's so many myths of self-forgiveness. And those are, the myth is, we think that forgiveness, and this is in broad, this could be others and ourselves, it's pardoning or forgiving the behavior. So you're saying, somebody hurt me or I hurt myself. I believe that it's okay that that happened. It's not okay that it happened, because you're not forgiving the behavior.
Mm.
What it also is forgetting that it happened. And for you, you have to think, and I'm going to give you a moment to think about this. What is something that you are holding on to within yourself right now? What is something you're holding on to?
Mm. Mm.
I'm giving you a minute to think about that. Zara, when you've got yours, let me know.
I'm sitting and thinking as I'm holding myself. I'm thinking about that too right now. Mm.
I see Kim's hand is up, and welcome, Lisa.
I just want to make sure I'm addressing I'm answering the question. Um, what is something I am holding on to that I cannot forgive myself about? Is that what the
Hmm.
question is?
Yes. What is
Okay.
the offense? Yeah, what is the offense that you are holding on to?
Okay.
Hmm.
I would say it's trauma. So growing up, I've forgiven my dad, my mom. They do the disease. They can't mirror what they cannot see. And as of recent, it's my marriage. I cannot believe I've let myself stay in a 13-year marriage, as smart as I am, and I've forgiven my husband. I cannot forgive myself. I do, but I
Mm.
don't. Most days, that's been the longest. Healing uh, uh, portion of my journey.
Hmm. And I think I thank you for sharing that, Kim, because for me, and I'm sure, it probably resonated from others. is the decisions you make or decisions we all make are what we have a hard time getting past. And welcome, Kelly. And that is the forgiveness that we have to accept. And it's accepting that it occurred. And we're going to actually talk about a little bit more about that and a little bit later. But for now, it's thinking, do we actually have to sit there and say, okay, I can forgive that I've done it? Not necessarily. But can you accept that it's happened?
Mm-hmm.
What choice do we have?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's the hard part, is that accepting. Because I think, generally speaking, we know we can't go back to the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then that piece of accepting, and I always wonder, why is that so hard for us to just accept, like things as they are right now, today? I don't know if you think, or if anybody else thinks, that is it that we feel we're resigning ourselves to accept something as it is, or
That's a good question. Is it resignation, or is it the fact that it's understanding? Oh, I don't want to go too fast. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to slow it down. I'm going to get to that one, and I'm going to get to what that is in a little bit. So we're going to
Let's
come back
welcome
to
Lisa
that.
in. Lisa just jumped
Yes.
in. Hey, Lisa, welcome in.
Hey, Lisa. So we'll get to that in a minute. We're going to get there. So, but what we want to also recognize is what happens to our body and mind if we cannot forgive. Kim, do you still have a question? I see your hand is up.
I do not. I shall put my hand down now. Thank you.
Thank you. Just want to make sure. And I think that's Shy that just jumped in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, welcome.
Yep.
So what happens to our body and mind if we cannot forgive? That's one thing we need to understand. The stress of unforgiveness causes physical problems. It is what it is. If we can't forgive, it can cause us to have a physical reaction. And hi, Danielle. And one of those, let's talk about it, what those are. You can have elevated blood pressure. You have increased heart issues. You can have issues with your stomach. Increased risk of getting sick. So your immune system is going to be weaker. You're going to have increased risk of respiratory issues. And welcome, Rachel. It can also affect your sexual and reproductive system.
Oh man.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Can't have that.
Let me go forgive somebody and myself real quick. No, I'm just playing. Go ahead.
You might need to. Welcome, Ann. You might need to. Okay. It can damage your brain. So what parts of it is the hippocampus and other parts of your brain. You can increase risk of substance abuse and alcoholism. That's just the physical part of it. And then we're talking about the mental health part of it. So it can cause you to have some obsessive thinking. So the rumination, and I'm hopefully you've heard that word before, but if not, rumination is constantly thinking about it. It can cause you can have some anger disorders. You can also be depressed, anxious, some obsessive compulsive disorders, some PTSD. You had a higher risk of developing post-traumatic stress disorder, and also some psychosomatic disorders. And some psychosomatic disorders is, your body, you actually feel sick, but it's not, it's actually your mind. So those are some reasons, those are some really increased reasons to why we want to forgive.
Yeah, those are some good ones.
If anything else, it's affecting your physical body. So while you're struggling with forgiving other people, and if you're struggling with forgiving yourself, you're doing physical damage to yourself. You're doing mental health damage to yourself. And we really want to try to forgive. So when we can forgive, it is more powerful for yourself than anyone else. You are going to give yourself the greatest healing just by forgiving. It is a pathway to psychological well-being and health outcomes.
One more time. Can you say that one more time?
It is a pathway. So it's your journey to psychological well-being and positive health outcomes. So if you want to get healthy, we start the journey of forgiveness.
Yeah, that's good.
I see Vinny's hand is up.
Good.
Well, how do you know if you have forgiven yourself?
That's a great question. And I believe that comes into our next one. In our next session about, and how do you know? Yes, it does. But I'm actually looking at how we are, where we're going to go with that. You will actually learn that one. So we don't want to get too far in advance, Vinny. So you have to come back next week so we can answer that question. How's that?
Oh, that's the next week.
Yeah, that's the next week one. Because today is just the foundation of why we need to forgive ourselves.
Just getting our whistle wet.
Exactly. And if you can't make it,
Is that okay? Is there going to be another topic on how, or is that also next week?
the how, yes, it's also next week.
Oh Lord.
And if you can't, and if you can't make it next week, you can definitely. That's why this is a series. If you can't make it next week, it is recorded, so you will also be able to listen to it. We actually, if we get ahead, then what my notes are for us today, we very well could get into how today. It also depends on where we land, as far as questions are concerned, and as far as the topic. But that's why it's a series. And I see Acadia has joined as well. So welcome.
Welcome, Acadia.
So let me see, where else was I? Okay. So we also want to recognize and acknowledge that humans are flawed individuals. None of us are perfect. We want to be perfect. We want to strive to be perfect, but we're not perfect. We also want to think of self-forgiveness as part of self-healing. So we don't ever think about the importance of forgiveness because we don't actually see it typically as part of our healing. But forgiveness is a key component of healing.
Mm-hmm.
Self-forgiveness is a way to replace not being able to forgive the perpetrator. So if you're yourself as a perpetrator, we want to forgive ourselves. Hi, Anita, welcome. Okay. So some languages that we can use when we are talking about it is, and I would love for this one to be written down. So I guess I'll let Zara do that one. So one of them is, I forgive myself for past mistakes. So some affirmations that we can use. I forgive myself for past mistakes.
For past mistakes?
Mm-hmm.
Forgive myself for past mistakes.
There's no way that we're not going to make mistakes. It's just part of life. We've made choices.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to do that. I've had to do that with things. I've had to do that with even some issues of I've mentioned it before in circles of having to some things that creeped up later, in my life, of how I managed certain relationships at the time of having them. And, I've seen this with a lot of different people, even with clients, where it's past things that they haven't forgiven of themselves, and they're wondering why they've hit a ceiling in their healing journey. And lo and behold, Dr. Tracey, it was areas where they needed to forgive themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely. The other thing another affirmation is, I've released the anger, shame, embarrassment, resentment, and guilt. So to answer a little bit about that, Vinny, if you've got anger, shame, embarrassment, resentment, and guilt for some of your choices, you haven't forgiven yourself.
I released the anger, shame, embarrassment, resentment, and what else did you say?
Guilt and guilt.
And guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Another one. I trust myself to learn from my mistakes and make better decisions.
These are good.
I trust myself to learn from my mistakes and make better decisions.
Nicole says very hard to do.
Yes, it is. But that's part of growing and learning. The way it could be looked at, Vinny, I see your hand up. The way it can be looked at is this. Every opportunity you have in life is to use what you've learned before to make better decisions later. You can't change who you were 10 years ago. You can't change who you were yesterday. You can't change who you were an hour ago. But what you can control is who you are right now.
Yeah.
And you're making the best decisions based on your history, based on your knowledge now, and based on who you are now. So looking back at your decisions 20 years ago, 5 years ago, yesterday, an hour ago is not fair, because you're judging yourself based on what happened now. I mean, based on what you did now, on what you learn now. I'm sorry, based on what you did before, based on what you know now. You didn't know that information before. So how can you make a better choice now if you didn't know that information 10 years ago or yesterday?
So it's basically recognizing that aspect of being that we operate at the level of consciousness in which we are. Right. So that means that if I was at this certain level of consciousness 10 years ago and I'm at a different level of consciousness now, my actions are probably going to be different. So really, and I hope that's resonating with everybody. I don't know. Let me see if it's resonating at all. Let's see some kind of way, a heart or something that says that this resonates with you all. It is very difficult because I also see, Nicole is saying in the chat, it's like it's sad when we can't right our wrongs sometimes. And it's the truth. It's reality. We can't go back and change the past, right? And that's something that we all generally tend to know. And I think some of the best ways to kind of deal with that is what she's talking about right now, is realizing, what am I going to do now? Although I can't change yesterday, what can I do now? How do I take the energy that's in me right now and transmute it so that going forward, my choices are healthy? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I don't see Vinny. Oh, I see Helen and Sandra and Rachel jumped in. Welcome. I don't see Vinny's hand anymore. I don't see her. So
I don't see her. I think she's gone, I think.
I'm sorry. But I do see Christy's hand is up.
I just wanted to, I really like what you're saying about how 10 years ago, I was at a different level of consciousness or awareness. And I didn't know certain things, but when I think about that, I just automatically think, well, how could I have not known? Why didn't I know? I should have known. And I can't get past that.
Thank you for sharing that. So I'm gonna tell you right now, Christy, shoulds are bad words now. So from this point on, anytime you say should, it's a bad word.
Stop that cussing.
Yes. And the reason I say that is because should is judgmental. You're judging yourself. You're judging yourself when you say, I should have known. How would you know if you were never taught?
Very
And
good.
that's just a thought process. How would you know if you've never been taught, or if you've never experienced the situation before? It's like and I want you to think of this as the analogy. Do you expect when a baby is born to come out walking?
Hmm.
We don't have that expectation of a baby coming out walking and talking and telling you what's on their mind, speaking their heart, speaking their mind, having at a point in their minds where their brain is completely fully mature. You don't have that expectation. So you've got to give yourself the grace and understanding that you're not that same person. And yes, the thoughts are, oh, I should have known. No, no, no. How could you know? So you've got to reframe that in your mind. How would you know?
Hmm.
How could you have known if you didn't?
Yeah. Yeah. Rachel says in the chat, leave your shoulda, woulda, couldas at the door.
Mm-hmm. I see your hand is up, Paige.
What if other people tell you that you should have known?
Mm.
You should have seen it coming. You should have known.
Then they're saying bad words, because in reality, how could they tell you that you should have known when they did not leave? They did not walk in your shoes. They were not there for you. They did not experience who you are. They didn't have your history. Hi, Cherry. They weren't there with you. They could have been your twin, born and raised with you entire life, but you're still a different person.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes in life, and I also saw this in the chat, the idea of, oh, now my chat won't go to me. Okay. You feel like you did know, but it feels, once again, a feeling is fleeting, and it's not actually concrete. Feelings are not concrete. So
Yeah.
one minute you can say, oh, I feel happy. The next minute you can be in tears.
And in addition to that, Tracy, too, in that comment where she says, I feel like I didn't know, she says, but I wasn't in good headspace to do the right thing. And I think that's the same as, in some senses, not being intimate with that knowing. When we're not in a good headspace, we're not clear-minded. So we're not operating from the consciousness that can actually choose correctly in that instance. So it's still sort of the same thing. It's like, well, I feel like I did know this, but I wasn't in a good headspace. Something was blocking my ability, or blocking me, or conditioning me, or whatever the case may be, to actually make, if that's the case, if it's a situation where you felt like you known, but there was a disconnection in that space that generally happened. Right. So still you weren't in the consciousness to make that particular quote unquote right choice.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Definitely.
Yeah. You know, another thing too, just real quick before you go on, Dr. Tracy, we often, we think so much that we're supposed to be omniscient. Like we're always all knowing, and we're going to be able to read minds and sometimes we have a hard time reading our own mind. You know?
Yeah.
So, but we think we're supposed to know everything. And that's an unrealistic expectation of ourselves sometimes. And then so we're struggling with not being able to forgive ourselves, because we basically are saying to ourselves, Czar, you're not perfect, so you should be ashamed of yourself because you're not perfect. You didn't know, the sky was blue, or whatever the thing may be. But I feel like that's important to say, because somewhere we have this marriage to perfection that to me seems to be at some of the root of why we have a hard time forgiving ourselves, or allowing ourselves to be as we are. Sorry, Dr. Tracy. Just wanted to throw that in there.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Czar. And we've got some new people that joined in. I think it's Lisa, Cherry, and Leor. So welcome.
Welcome, folks.
So I'm going to ask this question. And I know I have a feeling I know what the answer is, but I'm going to ask it just to throw it out there. No, I changed my mind. I'm going to switch my questions about. One of the things I want you to think about is, what did you learn as part of your journey? What did you learn throughout this entire time? Even these decisions that you made, what did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about others? How did you grow through it all? And I see Lisa's hand was up. Lisa, did you want to share?
I'm a strong person, and that's something that I didn't know about myself.
Mm. Mm.
Mm. So you learned something throughout that
Yeah,
journey, that you're strong. You're
yeah,
stronger than you probably gave yourself credit for.
definitely.
Hmm. And that was part of your journey.
Yeah,
If you had not gone through what you've gone through in your life, if you did not make the decisions that you've made in your life, would you have learned that about yourself?
no,
Mm. Wow.
So the gift of your journey was teaching you the strength of who you are and your character.
yeah, it has. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Wow.
Hmm. The next part of that question was, what were the benefits of the situation? And we tend, once again, I had mentioned that earlier, we tend to look at things in a negative light, in a negative viewpoint. But what were the positives?
Mm.
Lisa, I see your hand is up.
I made some incredible friends.
Mm, yes.
Wow.
Welcome, Ginger. Welcome, Laura. So through that journey, you made some incredible friends. Hmm.
Yes, I did.
Yes. So you actually increase that support system that is so needed among everyone. Everyone needs that support network. You need your community. You need your circle. Yes.
Yeah, they are the only people that I talk to about this subject because they understand, they've been there, they've gone through it. So they're strong like I am, and we help each other all the time.
Yes. I'm loving
Mm.
that. Hmm. Helen, I see your hand is up as well.
Hi. I'm a bit sick, so I sound bad, but I mean, froggy.
Trust
But
me, it's okay. I understand more than you know.
what did I learn? I learned that I kind of, well, the umbrella word, I guess, is that I'm not so great with boundaries, but one step below that is that I put a lesser value on like the privileges that I have. Like I shared all of my stuff with people because I was like, hey, sharing is caring or whatever I learned, right? But now I'm like, no, you don't get the privilege of using my cool stuff because I had to put hard work and sacrifice into getting my cool stuff. So I'm trying to be a little bit more of a, it sounds selfish and kind of like opposite of me, but people don't get to play with my cool stuff anymore just because I have it. Like, no, gotta work for it. That
There
sounds
you go.
so weird.
You're better
No,
learning how to steward it. Is that what it is?
I
Steward
don't
the
know what
things.
that means. Kind of. I
Uh,
hope so. That sounds way more mature, for sure. I'm 45.
I
I
was
should
just
know
trying
how
to
to
give
say
you
things.
another word better
Yes,
than
please,
selfish
please, please.
because you were saying it sounded selfish. So it was like, well, and you didn't sound like that's the word you really wanted to use
It
too.
really
But
is. Yeah.
stewarding just means, in a simple term, it's like responsibly utilizing and giving out what it is that you have.
Definitely. Yep.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
that's exactly a great word. Thank you. I'm gonna write it down.
Mhm.
And I guess the follow up is like, how did I grow? Well, I haven't really grown right yet. I've just sat here as a big mush of emotion. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the growth, though.
Mm.
That I think was your follow up question, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I didn't really grow yet. I've just found out a lot of pain. Mm.
I I would actually say that you probably have grown. You just don't recognize it.
Mhm.
It's kind of one of here's another analogy for you. When you have seen somebody, well, when you're losing weight yourself, the first 1 or 2 pounds, you don't even notice it. You don't
Mhm.
really usually notice when you lose weight until your clothes start fitting differently. Or till somebody says, my gosh, you've lost a lot of weight.
Mhm.
But throughout the journey of losing weight, you go from 1 pound to 2 pounds to 10 pounds to 20 pounds. And hopefully one day you're at the size that you want to be. Or it could be the opposite in the gaining weight. No matter what, those incremental small steps you don't ever see. We always see the big ones, but we don't see the small ones.
Yeah,
But for
Yeah.
you even
that's
to
true.
be here, you're growing.
I
Mhm.
want to say the person who spoke before about like owning and recognizing that she's strong, that's a beautiful thing. I want to like not downplay my assets, not physical, but like, like I am strong, but I have a hard time saying that out loud. And I just think that's pretty beautiful that who spoke up before me
Mhm.
because yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
Uh, Write it down. That's an affirmation that you can repeat to yourself every single day. I am strong. And that is also part of that healing journey to where you'll wake up one day and instead of not believing you're strong, you'll recognize you are strong.
Well, I think I want to be, my affirmation would be I am comfortable saying I am strong, no matter who hears it, and be
Oh,
like,
come
yeah,
on
bitch,
now.
I'm strong. Yeah.
I'm snapping for that. I'm snapping for that. Do you know
Yes.
what? Because that right there alone, I think I'm more comfortable saying you want my affirmation to be I'm comfortable saying I am strong. You took what Dr. Tracy just said and you took it and you made it your own to fit you. That right there is powerful movement and growth.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes. I see some wonderful words inside of the, yes. Okay. I've seen some things in the chat. Thank you. So as we continue, because I want to get through at least this part of it, and then we can open it up for some time. So some benefits. Um, One of the things I want to ask you, and like I said, this is the one I'm asking this one in reverse. This was going to be my first question, but I changed it around and want to say, if you could go back in time, could you change the circumstances? If you could you change it? And then, if you could change it, would it have prevented you from growing?
Mm.
Or would it have prevented you from being able to meet the next challenge in your life? I always look at our things in life as stepping stones to prepare us for what's ahead of our ahead. So would you be prepared if you could have changed the circumstances? Would you be prepared for tomorrow if you changed the circumstances of yesterday?
Mm. Mm.
Lisa, I see your hand is
So,
up.
Yeah, there's absolutely no way I would have been able to change it. But not only would I not have grown or been prepared for something in the future, but I think that it would have broken my spirit and my just me. It would have broken me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I look at this as something that had to happen.
mm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
That's
really hard to say because
Mm.
I
it is
love
hard.
him so much.
Totally understand that, Lisa. I totally understand that. It's so hard. But
Yeah.
through your journey, hi, welcome, Jason. Through your journey, it's preparing you for what's to come later. As hurtful and as painful as the journey is, it is going to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Your shield for later on. That's what I'm looking for.
Mm.
Your armor, your preparation for later. And that's where the importance of self-forgiveness is, because the focus of the negativity is not going to help you with that guard and that shield that you need later.
Mhm.
That self-forgiveness, that holding on to that resentment, is that you're chipping at that armor that you need for later. So, but what self-forgiveness is a way to alleviate that negative emotions. It's to make you stronger. And welcome, Edward, as well. And I think Anita, I think you came back, and Jason, everyone who's coming in. I can't keep up with everybody. I
It
really
goes so
can't.
fast. I'm telling you.
I'm
Most
so
of
sorry.
most of the folks I've seen before, y'all kind of know it's like, hey, welcome, folks, welcome.
Yes. And I'm having a serious conversation, and I can't keep up with you. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. Christina, I think it's Christina, or is it Christine?
Christine.
It's Christine, but you can call me Christina. It's all good. I'm easy. Um, I have a question, and I'm not sure if this is the right platform, but I kind of feel like it is.
Mhm.
But how do you know when it's time to let your relationship go?
Okay, that's a good question. When it's not healthy, when it's not healthy at all, or when you and that person are expect. Well, let me put it this way: you can't change anybody else. You're only in control of you. So if you're not, and if everybody is not working on a, a goal to move forward and to be together in a positive and healthy way, then you have to make that choice on what you are willing to settle for. Zara, do you have any thoughts on that as well?
Yep. In alignment with even with what the title of the room is, when you've done your work to forgive yourself, when you've done your work to release all of the energy of that which you feel like this relationship doesn't seem like it's working, when you've done that grieving work and you feel healthy and whole enough, your answer for that will come. You'll know whether this relationship is just totally not aligned and there's no hope for it. So not just that it's not aligned, but it's not aligned and there's no work or hope for that actually coming together. But you have to clear yours. You got to get you clear. Right. And that's why I think these pieces of forgiveness and stuff like that is very important. And even the self-compassion, so that you're choosing and making a choice from a healthy mind and not just a frustrated one. Not just a I don't know what to do one. Do you get what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Christine,
Yes.
does that make sense? Okay. All right.
Yes, that makes sense.
And welcome, Proud. I see that. See payment as well. So let's see. As we were saying, as I think right before, was self-forgiveness is a way to get rid of those negative emotions. So what I want you to think about, some more questions. And these are, and as many of you who've been in here with me and Zara before know that or even have been in audio rooms a few months ago. I don't know how long ago that I used to do them. I love to make it interactive, and I like to give you food for thought. And one of my thoughts for you as well is, what does holding on to the negative emotions do for you?
Ooh. Ooh.
What are you gaining from holding on to negative emotions?
Wow. I'm just typing that and putting that in the chat.
Yes, and it's just food for thought. And
Mhm.
the second part that kind of goes along with it is, what's the purpose of negative self-talk? Welcome A. What is the purpose of those negative self-talk? What are you gaining from that? When you're speaking negatively to yourself, what's the purpose of it? And would you allow somebody else to speak to your friend, to your sister, to your mother, to your father, or to somebody that you dearly care about negatively about themselves the way you talk, or negatively to them the way you talk to yourself?
Mm.
Just food for thought.
Mhm. Oh, I'm so curious to hear what Edward has to say on that. Go ahead, Edward.
Yeah, I was thinking I got stuck on the what is holding on to negative emotions do for you part, because that's actually a question, a literally verbatim question that I asked myself probably within the last week. I don't remember exactly what day it was, but I was, just in the situation I'm going through. Um there's a lot of choices that I know I could have made differently, but also just kind of like it was just said, there was a lot of choices that another person made that I couldn't control. And maybe I wish they could have done things differently, but they chose what they chose and I chose what I chose. So um, I incurred some pain and abuse and mistreatment and things like that from some of their actions. And so the holding on to those negative emotions, for a long time I felt like was protecting me, because I felt like, well, if I forget what they did, then they might hurt me again. So I got to hold on to this anger. I got to hold on to this rage and this pain. And but I've started to realize that over time that's been not only mentally wearing me down, but physically breaking my body down.
Mm.
And so I get like so I'm still going through a process of learning how to let go and accept what has happened, so that I could still, I guess I'm realizing I don't have to hold on to those negative emotions to protect myself. I can accept what has happened and still remember what happened without the automatic response of negative emotions coming up as kind of like a protective mechanism, I guess. So just that's those are some of the thoughts that question came up for me, was when that question was brought up, what does holding on to the negative emotions do for you? And it was like, if you would have asked me that question maybe 2 months ago, I would have been like, well, it's protecting me. But now I'm
Mhm.
realizing that, like, I'm actually, I had to have a sit down conversation with the person that caused some harm to me last night. And so there were several things said to try to jab at me emotionally and make me upset. And um, the way that I responded to it last night was I just ignored it and I stayed focused on the business that needed to be handled. But I think I was only able to do that because I accepted what happened previously and just realized that, like, I don't have to be angry at them for them to not hurt me moving forward. I kind of feel like I wish I had a better way to explain what I was feeling, but it was just kind of like this, like, they can't hurt me anymore, and I don't have to lash out at them in order for them to not hurt me.
Mm.
Um, so I don't really have like a point, but it's just like a lot of thoughts and kind of feelings came up with that, and I just wanted to share kind of what that brought up for me.
Yeah, thanks.
Mm, lots of things there. Lots to unpack. Yes. Patty, I'm sorry. Did we lose
Patty,
Patty?
we can't. I see her mic is open, but we can't hear you, Patty. You may have to push that arrow at the top and go out and come back in, because I see you're trying to talk, but we don't hear anything. Wait, there you go. I think.
Yeah,
There we go.
yeah,
There we go.
yeah. I think it's good. Like I agree with all that too, but it makes you stronger too and more aware, of the red flags and not having it happen again so much. You've seen a bad side to things, and you kind of it strengthens you up. I mean, after you get over the initial part of it. But it's not good to hold on to it because it's not good for your health and all. But it's good to, like with me, I just, when I think of that, I think of the bad things, and it keeps me, like at the beginning when I had left, and because I'd had enough and I left and I went to my daughter's. But it's like, he would try to do all that love bombing, from texting and this, that, and the other. And it just didn't work because I think of all the bad things, and I said, no, I'm not going back to that. I don't want to be treated that way. It's not going to happen. So that part of it was good because it made me strong, and it made me, refuse to be treated like that. But it's not good to hold on to it, for a long period of time. But it does make you aware of things more so in life. You're still, I'll always be loving and affectionate and, empathetic, but I'm also going to be more aware. I'm going to be more observant than I was before. So it was a learning lesson, a painful one, but it was a learning lesson. And it's just, that's the only good part of it, I believe.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like, and welcome. I see other people have joined in. I'm just going to say welcome to everybody. But what I'm actually hearing is that you use the negative emotions to propel you for change.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't hold on to the negative emotions, which could be very damaging.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, you just, it's something to learn it by, and not to give in to when they want to try to hoover you back. But yeah, you don't want to hold on to it forever because it's physically going to damage you in the end. If you just hold on to that resentment and all, because it's going to stress you out, and that's not good for you.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Yes. One thing I will give you recognition in is understanding two things. Self-forgiveness takes a lot of strength. A lot of strength. And the second one is it's a choice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can choose to forgive yourself, or you can choose to hold on to resentment. So it's the same as I can choose to go the wrong way down a highway, or I can choose to go the right way. Which one do you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
I see your hand is up, Nicole.
Yes, I just had a question on if you had any recommendations for good, reads for self-forgiveness and self-compassion. And also if you could just repeat what you just said so I can put it in my notes. I'm sorry.
Which part did I just say? Oh, sorry.
She did you how they do me, Dr. Tracy. I'm like, I don't remember what I just said.
Something about a choice. Self-forgiveness as a choice.
Yeah. She said self-forgiveness takes a lot of strength, and self-forgiveness is a choice.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Edward, your hand is up, and actually, I did get your message about books. I can give you names of books next week. I'm not on my my computer, and if I was on my computer, I would be able to give you names of books. But I'm not on my computer, so it's going to make me. But next week, Czar will not let me forget to give you names of books. I can definitely give you some for sure.
And Jason won't let me forget to remind Dr. Tracy. So. No, I'm writing it down.
Mm-hmm. But yes, and I just see Danielle's message. Sometimes you just make a wrong turn and you end up going south on the highway when you're meant to go north. It happens that making a mistake is different than making an active choice to purposely drive south in northbound traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Mistakes happen. That's part of us being human. Edward, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say with that last thing that you mentioned, it reminded me of, I was talking to my mom this morning about just some of the things I had experienced this week and how I kind of made myself sick with some extra stress and worrying about a lot of things. And And she said to me, she said, the same way that your body can become sick because of how much you weigh it down, basically you can use that same energy to continue to make yourself healthy. If you can change, if your body can change physically and get sick because of how stressed you are, then you can have control over the health of your body with that same energy by working on your mental health. So I just wanted to, that what you just said about it being a choice, that self-forgiveness being a choice is kind of like, if I can choose to make my body sick with all this energy, then I can choose to make it well with all this energy as well. So that's what I wanted to share.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Edward. I appreciate you breaking it even down further. So
Yeah.
I know we are at the end of our time, and I'm going to kind of throw this back at Czar, but I want to leave you with one thought for you for this week, before, just thoughts to have in your mind for the week and into our next time meeting. And there's 2 questions. No, 3. Who has shown you how to forgive? Who has shown you how to forgive? Are you repeating the patterns of holding on to resentment? And what are you living for?
Mm-hmm. Those are good.
Are you getting that all down, Czar?
I got it. It's in the chat. I got it.
And Czar's been such an
Can you repeat the
amazing.
second?
The second one is, are you repeating the pattern of holding on to resentment?
Mhm.
So number 1 was, who has shown you how to forgive? Number 2 was, are you repeating the pattern of holding on to resentment? And number 3, what are you living for? What are you living for? These have been good. My favorite question actually in this session was the one of, what's the purpose of negative self-talk? What is the purpose of everything that happens? There's a purpose behind a lot of these things. And people say it all the time, oh, everything, there's a reason, there's whatever. Well, what is the purpose of that? And is that purpose serving? Is that purpose actually serving the freedom of my heart? And so I hope that this go ahead, Jason, real quick. Let me get Jason before we get out of here.
Yeah, so I hope this isn't going too deep too quickly, but you know what the purpose that serves is that it makes me numb when it comes from the outside.
Makes you numb?
It makes me numb so that when it comes from the outside, it doesn't hurt as much.
But is it helpful, is the question.
Well, if it's coming from the outside and it hurts me more from the outside, maybe.
Okay. All right. There's a lot of things that
I
as Edward was.
But it might, real quick, sorry, real quick.
Yeah,
The question though is, in any time you're numb, even physically numb, the pain is still there. It's just behind. It's when it's going to arrive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's kind of where I was going to go with that. It was like, because even when Edward was talking about his thing about protecting, a lot of things that we do thinking we're protecting ourselves, we're actually not. It's working for a time or for a season, or seems to be working, but at some point pressure cooker kicks in and it pops, but these are really good, y'all. These are really good. I hope that this open was really good for you all, and that you'll come back next week for the rest of this, because as I said, even in the beginning, it's like, even watching in my private practice, I found people hitting these ceilings, and it's like, I've done the things, I've done everything, I've done this, I've done that, I have all the tools, and this is that and the other, and come to find out it was areas where people were, even with grief, where there's forgiveness that is missing from the equation. And once that opens up, I've seen people experience, I guess I could say, deliverance, really being freed in a way that they weren't before, just being able to really release that. And that self-forgiveness being a choice, because most of us do think that it's a feeling. Somewhere I think we picked up that it's a feeling. I don't feel like doing it. Well, okay, you can not feel like doing it, but if you don't do it, you have all of these other things, these consequences that are going to come in, like the physical aspects of this, the mental health issues and things that kind of come into that. So we really got to ask ourselves, what does it look like to really live a well life? And is it just as easy as getting rid of people or getting rid of that part of myself? Or do I actually want to tap into choosing and living and forgiving myself and living healthily? And we'll close on this. I'll say this. I say it all the time. Hearts don't heal under judgment. We need compassion for that. All right. So I hope today's session was good for you all. Let's thank Dr. Tracey. Let's give her some hearts and hands and some gifts and some whatever emojis y'all feel like giving at this moment. Thank you so much, Dr. Tracey. You've been getting us right. You've been getting us right.
It's my pleasure to be here with you all, and I'm loving it. I would love to see some of this feedback y'all have for us.
Yes, please leave the feedback. Once we close out of here, leave some feedback. Let us know how we're doing with this and going and flowing. All right, folks. All right, y'all. So hopefully to see y'all next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, or same circle time, same circle channel. All right. I'll see y'all later. Peace, and Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year, folks. Happy New Year.
See you in 2024.
See you all in 2024.
This was amazing. Thank you so much.
We will do more in 2024.
Oh, hell.
Right. All right, folks. That's it. Holler at y'all later. Peace.